Okay, let's go over the right answers to this worksheet, which is some more mole problems. All right, there's 4 of them that we have to go over. So, the very first one here, and actually before I do this, I want to identify that there's an equation, which is 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd particles per 1 mole equals, I want to change the color here, question mark, question mark. Now why the question mark, question mark? Well, this side over here, this side doesn't change. That is what it is. It's kind of like that there's 12 in 1 dozen, but this is different than a dozen, it's a mole. And this side over here, the question, this comes from the question that would be asked. All right, so we're going to substitute into this side stuff that we get from the question. So the very first one says how many moles? Well, remember how many? That's X. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this equation, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd is 1 mole. And then we're going to go to the other side and it's saying how many moles. So on top I've got my particles, the bottom is my mole. So I'm going to go X moles of, what are we talking about, mercury. So Hg on the bottom, all right? And then it's telling us we got 1.64 times 10 to the 24th. So 1.64 times 10 to the 24th, and it's atoms of mercury. So this also is atoms of mercury. All right. So now all I got to do is solve for X on the bottom. All right. Cross multiply 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd times X equals going the other way. 1 times 1.64 times 10 to the 24th. Now it's important to do this step because it helps tell you what is being divided by what. Don't just assume that you're just going to take the biggest number divided by the smallest number or the smallest number divided by the biggest number. This step makes it so that you know what's being divided by what. Because now I got to get X by itself. So I divide by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd on both sides. By doing that, lets me get rid of this, which now I have X equals, and you're going to type in 1.64 times 10 to the 24th, and you divide that by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd, and you should get an answer of 2.72, and that was moles of Hg. Now, what does it mean, moles of Hg? It's like dozens of mercuries, right? Or dozens of eggs. So we've got 2 and almost 3/4 of a dozen of these eggs, all right? And the eggs are atoms of mercury, all right? That's what this concept means. So that's number 1. All right, let's go to number 2. I'll erase the bottom part, but I'm not going to erase the top because we're still going to be using that same equation, except this part might change. So the second one says, how many molecules? No, that's molecules is the top part. So now we know already we're doing molecules this time. So we want X molecules of what stuff? Carbon dioxide, CO2. If we have 0.42 moles, so we have 0.472, that's not 42, 472 moles of carbon dioxide. So again, that bottom part's saying, I don't have a full mole, I have about a half of a mole, half of a dozen of eggs, half a dozen of molecules of carbon dioxide. So from here, we're going to cross multiply. Turn that a little bit so you can see a little better. So cross multiply X times 1. That was this direction. Now we're going to go the other direction. So it's 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd times 0.472. Notice this is different this time than last time. Last time we had to divide, this time we're going to multiply. That's why it's so important to do this cross multiplication piece. So X equals, multiply this out, and you should get 2.84 times 10 to the 23rd. And what were we finding? Molecules of carbon dioxide is the answer. All right, so that's the answer to number 2. So now we'll go to number 3. So we can get rid of this, and get rid of this. I'm still going to keep this equation because that's the equation we're going to use for all these. So number 3, how many atoms? Well, atoms, that's the top part. So we want to know X atoms of what stuff? Iron. So that's Fe So we know this spot is atoms of Fe. Now, what's my moles then? It says we got 2.74 moles of iron. So that's the bottom, 2.74 moles of iron. Now all I gotta do is cross multiply. So we're gonna go x times 1 equals this times that. So 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd times 2.74. And if you multiply this out, I'm going to get my answer, so I'm going to type it in. The answer is 1.65 times 10 to the 24th. And that was atoms of Fe. And again, these are really, really big numbers. Why really big numbers? Because we're talking about such a big number up here, moles. It's not 12 like a dozen, but it's similar to the idea of a 12 and a dozen. All right, but it's this really big number is the dozen, the mole. Okay, so we're going to end up with a really, really big number of dozens of atoms of Fe or iron. All right, last one. Erase all this. Last one says how many moles? So moles is on the bottom. So we're going to go X moles of what we're talking about. Sulfur hexafluoride, the stuff that makes your voice really low. And then it says if there are 2.79, so we got 2.79 times 10 to the 24th molecules of SF6. So this spot is molecules of SF6 also then. All right, so from here we're going to cross multiply. So we've got this number times 1. So 2.79 times 10 to the 24th times 1 equals go the other way. 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd times x. Again, this step is really important to make sure we know what's being divided by what. So I got to divide by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd on both sides. That lets me get rid of this. I end up with x. And if you multiply and divide this out, you're going to get 4.63. And that was moles of SF6. It's important to make sure that you put all that stuff down, right? Don't just put moles, all right? Because then it's moles of what? That'd be like telling you to go to the Walmart. I want you to go to the Walmart and get me 2 dozen. And you're like, well, 2 dozen what? What do you want? 2 dozen donuts, 2 dozen bags of chips. What do you want? All right, that's why you got to put this other piece down is what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about 4 dozens of this stuff, all right? So me telling you, go to Walmart, get me 2 dozen donuts. Well, now you know what you're going to get me, not just 2 dozen, right? So it's important to have both pieces of that in your units. You also can't just go with this and you can't go get 4 donuts because that's way different than 4 dozen donuts, right? 4 donuts, that's 4 donuts. 4 dozen is 48 donuts, all right? So that's the answers to all those. All right, we'll see you next time. Have a great day.